Hi friends, new and old, welcome to the channel. Today we're launching into part 4 of my Monster High G4 project. I hope by this point you know what I'm talking about. If not, I have an introductory video where I go into detail on what the Monster High G4 project is. So if you've missed the opening or any of the previous videos that introduced my take on some of the other main characters so far, a playlist of all my Monster High themed videos are going to be either in the card above or in the description below. And if you're all on board, let's round out the main crew here. So we are starting with Lagoona. Now, I'm going to do what I do every time, which is doing small notes for each generation. And admittedly, Lagoona is probably the hardest one to do this for, because the transition between, like, each generation has been different, especially Gen 1 to Gen 3, but Lagoona is aggressively different, and you'll see this while I try to condense notes for her. So, in Generation 1, Lagoona was an Australian from the Great Scarier Reef. She wasn't really tied to any specific friend group. She was part of the main cast, but she preferred to spend her time with varying social circles, and a lot of the time her time was with her boyfriend Gil. Her dynamic with Gil primarily served this purpose of an undercurrent of interspecies racism between saltwater and freshwater monsters that was interesting, but wasn't executed great at times, leading to myself very much disliking Gil, which thus made Lagoona kind of hard to enjoy because it was always tied to him. In Generation 2, her characteristics are the same. However, Gil wasn't her boyfriend. They knew each other, he was in the thing, but again, Gen 2 didn't last very long, so they never actually dated, so we actually were able to focus on her personality rather than this relationship dynamic. Generation 3, again, huge difference. So instead of being Australian, so first of all, as pictures are showing, she's pink now. Just is. I like it, but, you know, it is immediately strikingly different. She is not Australian, she is Latina, though where exactly is up for debate. I tried researching this the best I could. Some people say Peru, some people say Honduras, some people say Brazil, but it was kind of all over the place where she is from. She's just Latina as a blanket term. I tried researching that really hard, so if there is actual confirmed information, I could not find it. And because they really lean into her heritage, not her scaritage, her actual, like, cultural heritage, it affects a lot about her character, where Gen 1 was extremely, like, low-key, laid back, kind of just went with the flow. They really leaned into this, like, piranha shark inspiration for Generation 3, which led to her being very passionate and very fierce, and, like, she had, like, this bloodthirsty personality, like, she was like a cutthroat competitor, and they really, like, leaned into that for her. She can be the idealist of the group. She's sheltered, however most of these characters are. And while she is overly competitive and athletic, she also has this, like, artistic side. She likes telenovelas. She's, like, creating a graphic novel. They really, like, gave her other characteristics, which are very different from her Generation 1 counterpart. So combining all of these aspects, while I love a lot of them, was hard to figure out where the middle was. I'm going to explain how I did it, and I would be open to hearing how other people would do it too, because this was just kind of how I could rectify these two very different iterations of this character. So, in my version, she is half Latina siren and half Australian sea monster. So she is both Latino. Her mother is Brazilian, and her father is Australian, to kind of like combine those traits. And in my head, I kind of took traits from generation 1, gave it to her dad, generation 3, gave it to her mom, mixed them together. Now we got Lagoona. She grew up in the Great Barrier Reef, but she still is attached and loves aspects of her mother's culture, so she kind of has this like mixed heritage. She can alter aspects of her personality due to having siren DNA. But she has a blue-pink ombre skin, generally, with little blue freckles across her, like, face, and, like, scales and stuff. She kind of has the athletic height, or an average height, athletic build. She has fins on, like, her forearms and on her legs, and webbed fingers and toes that help her swim. She has blonde, beachy waves. She pulls them back into a ponytail. Sometimes they have color, sometimes they don't, but generally it is a blonde ponytail. And she has these large, green, round eyes. Kind of fish-like, but not quite as fish-like as Gen 1. And she has sharp, or can have sharp teeth. I think her, like, fashion aesthetic is this athletic swimmer vibe. She will wear sneakers over heels all the time. She does not wear heels, ever. She's kind of got that aquatic, fishy, fishnet, meshy design, but can have, like, bubbles or pearls if she wants this, like, softer, more formal aesthetic. With her main colorations being oceanic greens and blues, with like some white accents. Her personality, good and bad, is that she is always up for a challenge. However, she can be aggressively competitive and hates being second best at anything. She's an amazing swimmer, obviously, but she also is really good at track and field and land sports as well. If she gets stressed out or angry, she needs to bite things to get the aggression out. Understandable. And she also refuses to sing because she is unsure if she's got the siren song or some sea monster voice. And she refuses to find out which one she has, so she does not sing at all. She loves friendly and, friendly competitions. She loves telenovelas and, like, dramatic fiction. And she loves surfing. That's something she gathered from both her parents. However, she hates low humidity. She hates having to stay inside for prolonged periods of time. She hates low tide when she can't go surfing. She just wants to always be out and doing that. Her primary must-haves that she always has with her is a bottle of water, because due to being under the sea monster classification, she needs hydration and water more than other people. She's constantly drinking and, like, trying to keep herself hydrated, which she is not in the water. However, she also carries around gummy worms. It's her favorite snack after a workout. Don't tell her coach. So she's also, on top of being captain of her swim team, she's also in the Unearth Club, which is like an eco-friendly, eco-forward club. She's in the track and field, and she also has a part-time job as a barista at the Coffin Bean coffee shop. As for family, like I said, her father, Cove, is an Australian sea monster. He was on the swim team of his school, and he loves to keep his own skills sharp while training his training his daughter. Meanwhile, her mother, Sandra, is a siren. She's full of energy. She loves life. She brings that, like, zest for life to her daughter. Lagoona also has a distant cousin called Finnegan Wake, who is also a siren, and we'll get to his life later, because he's on the list. As far as, like, Lagoona's set of friends, She is best friends with Gil Weber, who she also has a crush on. She is close friends with Abby Abominable because they're both extremely straightforward, and they have both transferred air, and they both kind of have that same camaraderie of being different, but loving the school and wanting to fit in. She's also extremely close with Draculaura because they're both extremely extroverted people, passionate about their interests, and get along with most, if not everybody. So they tend to run in very similar circles. Claudine and Lagoona are both always up for friendly competition, and they're also low-key the kind of friends that, you know, if something goes wrong, you're like, hey, can you help me hide a body or something? They both kind of give that vibe, so they probably are both that friend. Meanwhile, Lagoona also is really close with Frankie Stein because they both live their lives to the fullest in their differing ways. Even though Frankie can't swim, they still, like, really get along. And Lagoona has a pet fish named Neptuna, which is a pink and blue ombre anglerfish. Now, with Lagoona out of the way, I am getting to the second most changed, well, not most changed, but kind of aggressively visually changed character, and that is Ghoulia Yelps. In Generation 1, Ghoulia was the smartest student in their class. She is Cleo Denial's best friend. Ghoulia loves to study and experiment, both with, like, computer stuff, but also with, like, science. She was a comic book nerd who did cosplays. She wrote fan fiction. She would be the reporter for, like, the Comic-Con for their for their school paper. She also was a bit of a video gamer. And a huge part of, like, the Monster High lore in Generation 1 is that zombies as a whole did not speak English. They would default to, like, groans and moans to communicate, which most, if not everybody, could understand them aside from the audience. Generation 2 is basically copy-paste that character more so than even other generations. The main difference being that not every zombie didn't speak, like, the language of the show. Meanwhile, Generation 3, in doing this, I realized they kept more about Ghoulia than I thought they did. It's more so that aesthetic is different and reasons for doing things are slightly different. So, Ghoulia in Generation 3 is still highly academic. She's still the smartest one of the smartest students in the school. However, it's more fueled after a need to combat these negative stereotypes of zombies that exist, and her own personal anxiety disorders that fuel her to excel rather than a love of learning like Generation 1 had. She is also a huge gamer. They really leaned into the gaming and coding aspects of Ghoulia's character. However, she also is a skater, which is unique and very different. And in Generation 3, they did away with the zombie language. Everyone speaks English. They don't have, like, the zombie shamble. However, the world has more stereotyping than the characters portray, I guess. So when making Ghoulia, I really leaned into Generation 1 for aesthetic and Generations 3 when it came to hold on. So with my interpretation of Ghoulia, I really leaned into Generation 1 aesthetics and Generation 3 personality, I guess. Tried to fuse those things. Again, the overlap wasn't as drastic as I initially thought it was going to be, so... Ghoulia is a zombie. Always has been, always will be. She has muted, like, green skin with some darker, like, patches. And she has an average height and a curvier body. She has messy blue hair that's in these half up, half down pigtails. It's dyed. It's clearly like a dyed color. She has lidded green eyes, a large smile. She has glasses, and she has forearm braces to walk with. Her fashion aesthetic is this dark academia with like these grunge elements with like rips in her tights, and she wears like Converse with her skirts and like the fishnets, and a lot of like brain and anatomy like patterns. Her primary color schemes are like these desaturated greens and pinks with like pops of these like bright reds to like for these eye-catching details. As for her personality, she is extremely smart. She gets the best grades of everybody. However, she's more prone to work harder to try to prove to herself and other zombies that she's capable, even though in my version of the world, that's not really a super common assumption, but she still tries to fight to keep that from being the dominant opinion. She is bilingual because the zombie moans and groans is considered its own language. She also uses sign language here and there as well, so she's multilingual. Because zombie aspects of her, and zombies in general, they affect things like mobility or verbal skills. So she'll generally overcompensate with other ways to make up for those perceived shortcomings. And if she struggles with words in like universals, she'll substitute them with appropriate groans and moans in zombie, and her close friends can understand and translate accordingly. She's also a huge gamer. She has dominated the high scorers in the Rec Room arcade machines and every arcade, any video game system she can find. As well as she writes and draws digital art comics, kind of like your webtoon type stuff. She loves learning. She loves digital art and comic design, and she loves video games. But she hates being interrupted when trying to finish her thoughts. She hates running, and she hates when there is no Wi-Fi, because most, if not everything that she does involves the internet in some way. She's always carrying around her laptop that's covered with like stickers, and she has earbuds. And as far as like clubs and activities, she is part of the Student Disembodied Council. She's the treasurer. She's part of the Creepy Arts and Crafts Club, where she does her digital art and webcomics and kind of shows them to her peers. She's also part of the Z Sports team, which is just like a digital gaming league. But my opinion for her general notes was that she was a character that got deboned, or she got demoted in G3 and is no longer part of the main crew, and I felt like that was kind of unfair, so I put her back into the main crew. I really think that dark academia fit works for her, because that's, a more popular aesthetic than it was even before. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that nobody in Monster High really leaned into that, and I felt like it really worked for Ghoulia's general vibe. Cleo is still her best friend, but I really wanted to make sure that Ghoulia had her own characteristics and passions and stuff that didn't rely on that close friendship. I also have seen this in like media and talking about the zombies in Monster High in general, and a lot of people like the idea of them having like mobility aids, and so I kind of slipped those in with the arm bracers too. As far as her relationships go, she has her father, which she's very lucky to have, because not everybody who becomes a zombie has family that also becomes a zombie. Her best friend is Cleo. It's one of those friendships that you wouldn't expect that work, but it works really well. I'll explain that more once we get to Cleo directly. Ghoulia is also really close with Deuce. Her friendship with Frankie is due to the fact that even though there are like reasons for reaching unlife, any memories of any past humanity or whatever, and everything is different, they still can bond on that same, not human, but human adjacent, if that makes sense. She's good friends with Abby because they're both multilingual students that want to prove themselves, and they both know sign language, so they both like are prone to communicate with each other without having to verbally speak. She's also Ghoulia's also really good friends with Skara Screams, who is a banshee. Skara, it has liminal vocals, and so Ghoulia can relate to that as well. So they'll also speak in sign to give their voices rest when they, want to talk less or are less verbal in general. She also has a crush on a zombie named Slow-Mo. They kind of bond over the fact that they're both passionate about artistic interests. He makes short films, she makes comics. They kind of have a little flirtationship thing, but they're not like together. And Ghoulia has a pet barn owl that lives on her family property. His name is Sir Hootsalot. So that's all I have to say about Lagoona and Ghoulia today. If you have any comments, any questions, anything like that, any suggestions about how the rest of this lineup is going, I have ideas for the next 2 videos, and then I have a lot of characters after that, so if you have any favorites that you really want me to get to, mention them down below so I can get to them quicker. You know the drill by now. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really appreciate that. I hope to see you all again in the next video.